Welcome back, and we'll settle in for our next meditation. Okay, so the invitation is that we're going to begin in a standing posture. So this is always optional, so you can still work through the meditation practice in a seated position. That's not a problem. And if you do choose to stand, and you find after some time that the body would be better off seated, and you need to come back into a seated position before we have done, then please do so. Okay, so do take care of yourself through the practice, and I shall guide you. As I say, we will start standing and then we'll come back into a seated position. Okay, so just taking your time now just to come up into a standing posture. Okay. Okay. So, hopefully you can still hear me okay there. So, the suggestion is to have your feet hip width apart so that we can create a nice steady base, a steady foundation. You might like to soften the knees ever so slightly so that the legs are not too rigid. So a soft bend in the knees helps kind of bring a softening into the lower body. You might also bring your attention to the hips and the pelvis and just checking in here. So what we don't want too much is the bottom sticking out too much, so it may be just tucking the tailbone in ever so slightly, having the sense of the tailbone pointing down towards the ground. Sort of tucking the pelvis in ever so slightly. So we can feel through the feet, the knees and the hips this fairly steady foundation. So you may also be aware of some subtle movements in the body as it works to maintain a sense of balance. So just becoming aware of that and working with it. Just noticing. Okay, so in the upper body we can just as the same as we're seated, just when we're like sitting tall, so the upper body lifting, growing out of the pelvis, the same sense of lengthening in the spine, allowing that length to come up through the neck, into the head, and the crown of the head reaching towards the sky. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the meditation, if you are seated, you can do pretty much all of this in a seated position, checking in with the feet, the knees, the hips, growing tall in the upper body, crown of the head reaching to the sky. And then we'll bring our attention into the shoulders, And we'll just notice here. And I'm going to invite you to bring a little bit of movement into the shoulders. So perhaps squeezing the shoulders forward so you can feel that nice stretch through the upper back. And then rolling the shoulders up to the ears. Nice squeeze. And then rolling the shoulders back and down. And then seeing if we can relax the shoulders in this back and down position. So opening up in the front of the upper chest and allowing the shoulders to soften, and allowing the arms just to hang from those shoulder joints. And maybe you even bring a little bit of movement, a little sway, a little swing into the arms, so you can just sort of feel how they're just hanging from those shoulder joints. Nice and relaxed. We can also just test that looseness in the elbows, and then in the wrists. Just allowing the hands and the fingers and thumbs to hang softly by the sides of the body. And we can also then sort of check in with the whole body and the sense of balance. And you can, if you're seated, you can also work with this sense of balance, but from the pelvis. Whereas if we're standing, we can work from the sense of pelvis from the feet. Now you're welcome to have the eyes closed, but do feel free to open them at any time, just if you need to check in with your surroundings and your sense of balance. And so the invitation is just to bring a little bit of movement in terms of shifting the body from the feet. So we're going to sort of test a little bit, explore how far forward can I lean before it's too much. And just, you can do this very subtly. So I don't want you to do it so much that you end up sort of falling and becoming too much off balance. So just really checking in, nice subtle small movements, a little bit forward, a little bit back, a little bit side to side, and just notice what that feels like when the body's kind of too far in one direction. And just notice when you are in that spot of imbalance, how much strain it puts on the muscles in the body. And you can just explore that for yourself, noticing perhaps how the muscles in the legs engage, in the pelvis, also in the core, in the center of the body, around the back, the middle. All of these muscles start to engage as we kind of lean in any direction. And maybe even take a moment to pause when you're leaning in a particular direction and just hold your weight there. Maybe all your weight is on one foot. And just kind of notice to yourself, wow, I wonder how long I could stay like this. Yeah, that's a lot of energy. A lot of energy being used in the muscles and in the body to hold hold us upright. So, nice and gently now, coming back to more of a central position where the body is upright, and it may still be that there's still some subtle movement in the feet, like between the heels and the balls of the feet, the sides of the feet, as we try and find that kind of center point. So if the movement remains, however small, just allowing that to happen. It's actually, in fact, very hard or very tricky to stay standing stock still because of this need for balance. So as best you can, finding your center point, your midline. Again, checking in with the knees, with the hips, the upper body, the shoulders, the head and neck. So in a way, we want to use the least muscles as possible, using the least amount of energy, so we can find this point in the middle where the body can just rest. So we're going to stay here just for a few moments more, but as I mentioned earlier, if at any point you're finding that the body needs to come into a seated position, then please do so. It's not a failure to need to shift. We don't typically stand in this way for a long period of time, so we can start to feel an overstraining in the body. We don't want to tire ourselves out. We're just exploring and experimenting here. So do come into a seated position if you wish. Otherwise, we'll continue in this way just for a few moments longer. You may notice in this standing posture there's more of a need to focus our attention on the body. So you might take just a moment to reflect on how the mind is in this standing posture. Okay. So very gradually we're going to draw our standing posture to a close. But before we do that, and as part of that transition, I just want to invite you to bring a little bit of movement into the arms. Just a little gentle shaking, maybe a little sway, a little movement. Bring a little bit into the shoulders, into the upper body, into the legs, into the hips. Perhaps just stretching out the feet. Wonderful. Okay. And just very gently and mindfully Taking a seated position once more, and we can join those who are currently seated. Taking your time to come back into that seated posture. Taking a moment to feel your feet on the ground, perhaps still in that hip width apart. We can still have a sense of softening the knees. We can still have a sense of just tucking in the pelvis. The upper body growing, lifting out of the pelvis. Nice and tall, lengthening in the spine. Crown of the head reaching towards the sky. Checking in with those shoulders, maybe just giving them a gentle roll and a squeeze if that's helpful. Just to find that back and down position once more. And then relaxing the arms and placing the hands in the lap, nice and close to the body. Finding a comfortable spot. And seeing if we can allow the fingers and thumbs to be soft and loose. And then with our eyes closed or half open, just taking a moment to notice how the body is, how the body feels after this standing posture, coming back into seated. Just noticing what you notice. Taking time to notice also how the mind is. Once in a seated posture, where does our attention go? How is our ability to focus? And we can also take some moments here just to check in with our balance in our seated posture. This time working from the seat of the pelvis to find that center point. to find that midline. So you may even gently just take the body off to the side, back and front, and these could be very subtle movements. They don't have to be very big at all. Just to feel the body come off balance and then back into balance. Once more noticing the effort that we put the muscles to when we come off balance. Noticing the sensations in the body as you come in and out of balance. And whenever that feels enough, just gently coming back into that balanced posture. Resting here. And then there's an invitation here, if you wish to, just to explore that sense of balance in your breath. And we can do this by bringing in a gentle count, finding what feels comfortable for you. But a suggestion could be to breathe in for a count of 4 and breathe out for a count of 4. Maybe just spending some time exploring that for yourself. Breathing in for a count of 4, breathing out for a count of 4. And you can, of course, choose not to do the exercise, and you can, of course, let it go at any time and just come back to a natural breath. This sense of finding balance through the breath helps us to bring in balance to our body systems, balancing our moods. And the sense of embodying balance through our posture, through our breath, can help to bring a sense of balance into our lives. And accepting the balance of things. Sometimes there's rain, sometimes there's sun. Sometimes things go well, sometimes things don't go well. And seeing if we can rest in the balance, this ebb and flow, the natural movement of life. If you haven't relaxed the balanced breathing, you could do so now. You could, of course, continue it if it feels comfortable. We can just take a moment to rest in the balance. Coming back to resting in the balance with the breath, with the posture. And just taking a moment to reflect on how we're joining in with this time of year, with nature, at this point of the equinox of equal light, equal dark. As we rest in the balance with nature. And then coming to your breath, feeling the flow of your breath in and out. And together, we'll notice the breath for a breath in and a breath out. And we'll bring this practice to a close. Taking your time just to gently shift from the practice, perhaps bringing in some gentle movement to the body and opening the eyes when you feel ready. Thank you for your practice.